everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. We are here today to talk about celiac safety at events, the legal and culinary standards for gluten-free catering. And the main reasons we're here, the four of us are here today to talk about this, is because I recently saw a post on a Facebook group of meeting professionals where the meeting planner posted, "Has anyone needed to arrange meals to accommodate celiac dietary restrictions? I'm needing to find somewhere to order about 10 celiac-friendly meals from a specific city because the convention center at that city kitchen does not accommodate." And that just got my goat and really irked me about that. And I called my three friends here on the screen to talk about it. And up the screen with me is Chef Martha Morgan. She's the creator of Allergy Dragon. And then below me is Chef Murray Hall out of Toronto, Martha is the Allergy Dragon former corporate hospital chef who has celiac disease and multiple food allergies herself, and she specializes in special diets and food allergy menus. Murray's an executive chef out of Toronto, and Laurel Francoeur, my God, it just my tongue. She's a disability rights attorney, advocate, author, and national speaker focused on families living well with food allergies. They've all been on the show together, or not together, but before, and I wanted to bring them back to talk about this because it literally got my goat. Murray, I think you were the first one I texted, and your response to me was crazy that this is still happening. Most places have shifted this to being the norm, not the exception.
Yeah, I wouldn't, having that kind of statement come out, I find that really difficult to understand because it is so easy to provide a gluten-free friendly meal in a large-scale environment now. It's the items that you have at your disposal are so plentiful that it's really easy to accommodate this. The whole kitchen may not be gluten-free or certified gluten-free, but you can definitely accommodate a meal for people that is gluten-free.
And I think, and Martha, I'm going to bring into your kitchen experience as well, and the convention center is big enough that you can have more than one kitchen to prepare, like if you've got 10 people with celiac, you can make one kitchen for that event celiac safe. Would you not think so, Murray?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You could definitely do that depending on the size of the operation and some of the easier things you can do is just even, a basic salad or a chicken or a fruit plate is all gluten-free. If it's really just down to the basics, and it's down to the chef and the team to get creative beyond that. But you can really kind of put together something fairly, delicious and standard and acceptable by most people that just doesn't have anything laced with gluten in it.
Right. Martha. Oh my gosh, this has just gotten my goat. Now I can't remember anybody's names. Martha. In the hospital, because you are celiac yourself, you converted that kitchen, can you talk a little bit about how you helped convert that kitchen to be safe for a variety of different dietary restrictions?
Yeah. When I was able to do it for my first couple of years, and then corporate kind of took over some of the things, but I basically pulled everything apart and just budgeted in and had as many allergen friendly options and gluten-free options that were good quality. So we didn't have to have 2 and 3 different options. And I think that it just boils down to being easier and safer for people and you streamline things for not only your guest experiences, and your residents or population that you're serving, but also your team members. It makes it easier. So if you have one good quality sausage, I always bring this up because when I took over the kitchen, we had 4 different types of sausages. And of course we have to accommodate different diets already in a hospital setting. But to me, it was crazy because all of those 4 different sausages, I couldn't eat any of them at the time because none of them were gluten-free. So then we had to get a separate product. I was just like, this is just crazy to me. It's stimulates your brain. And we all know that quality versus quantity. So I would rather it works more expensive for a good quality option that's going to sell out all the time. And for instance, for us, what we ended up doing was I actually ended up spending about not spending, but I actually got in 30% more product over the previous year, because we had such a big growth in our not only staff, but also all, the people that we're serving, our patients. Mm-hmm. I actually was able at the end of the year, Cisco actually gave me a printout and handed over to my boss because they didn't like all the money I was spending, but I was still staying underneath my budget. So they couldn't yell at me. Well, then I'd only done it for about 6 months. And then they sent me this printout, and it has all the sales and how much your volume is versus what you saved over the year and that kind of thing. And of course, I had only been with the company for 8 months. So here I am, converted the venue about 6 months into it. So I only had like those 6 months to kind of say, this is what we should be doing. I'm doing my job. And the printout actually said that even though we were getting more product in and spending more money, we actually saved 13% over the previous year because we had a lot less waste.
Wow. And that's huge. The less waste is huge because you're not throwing away product that's not being eaten because people can't eat it.
Right. And then made it a lot easier. People didn't get stressed out when we had somebody that was gluten-free or this or that. It was just little shifts. So right. We overcomplicate things.
Yes, we do. And I think it just has a lot to do with so many products that are on the market and available. Joshua Powers just popped in here and said, so much opportunity for restaurants when serving food, the food allergy community. You're correct, Joshua. And we need to reconnect. I'll shoot you an email later today or tomorrow. Laurel, when I called you about this, and I'm like, this is what this person said, because you're an attorney, you brought that other aspect of it to here as well. And I know Murray in Canada, celiac doesn't fall under the Americans with Disabilities Act, but Laurel, can you talk about your angle of this, of when a venue says we can't accommodate celiac, what can a meeting planner do, or what's our response legally wise, if we can say that, and how can we ask, what questions can a meeting planner ask?
Okay, so for celiac actually does fall under the ADA. We have a couple cases. There's a PDF Chang's case where that was clearly established that celiac is a disability under the ADA. But a restaurant may not have to change its menu if it's not something that it normally does. So the Department of Justice, after, I don't know if you remember the Leslie decision, the college decision with the school cafeteria. So right after that, the Department of Justice issued a document that said public restaurants do not have to accommodate for food allergies, meaning change their menus, unless it's something that they already typically do for other customers. Okay. So that's the caveat. So, and the idea is it can't be something that fundamentally alters the way they do business. So if their business involves altering their menus, then they must do it. But if it would be a fundamental alteration for their menu, then they don't have to.
So, I mean, and that could literally be, hey, like we're altering this menu and taking the cheese off of it and to make it vegan, right? Or if we're providing dairy-free options for people, or we're providing halal or kosher. I mean, in kosher, they might get from outside, right? But so, I mean, I don't think they are fundamentally already changing the menus to meet a variety of different dietary restrictions.
Right. And if they are, then they have to do that for people with food allergies as well. Yeah.
So Marie, on a convention center side or conference center side, I mean, you and I've talked about this before because I love the fact you start with a simple plate and then you add, explain that process to me again. I'm like, you start out with as many things as possible being gluten-free as well. And then you add the protein. And I think we were talking mostly about that protein and that vegan option, but that's something you do on a daily basis, right?
Yeah, something we do on a daily basis. So one of the things we'd look at for all our events is we would look at our top 3 allergens, which would be nuts, gluten, and dairy for my neck of the woods. And we would take those items completely out of the menu to start off with. So having that item out of the menu made it a lot easier for me to address any sort of other dietary concerns, but also gave the flexibility for the team to create that one salad, that one soup, that one appetizer that was able to feed everybody regardless of if they had different dietary concerns. So, and just building off of that, you could actually take a lot of things that was available to you in the market right now. There are some fantastic gluten-free flours out there if you really want to use a flour-based and component for your dish. But a lot of the items that we were using, we just took flour out altogether. and we looked for those hidden glutens in like soy sauce and Worcestershire sauce and things like that. Made sure we addressed those ones. We were actually looking at some of the bought products that we were using to make sure that they didn't have any gluten in it. And if it did have something into it, we just make it ourselves in house. So it was something that we always kind of had the umbrella that we're not a gluten-free facility, certified gluten-free facility, but we can easily provide you a gluten-free celiac meal within your conference or event space. And I did actually shop outside at a couple local suppliers that were certified gluten-free for some of my desserts that came through. And the desserts we would actually really take those desserts and serve it almost to everybody as well. And again, you kind of tick that box where it was gluten-free, dairy-free, vegan, or nut-free as well too. And a lot of people wouldn't really know the difference if you didn't have any food allergies, but the ones that did have the food allergies were really appreciative of having the same dessert or the same meal that everybody else was having. They didn't have to be singled out or feel special.
Well, and I think that's the key. I mean, and I think a combination of what the two of you and Martha just said is that it is streamlining in the back of the house helps with the front of the house, right?
Exactly.
I mean, because one of the challenges I think across the board is that the front of the house, the servers need to understand, but if you streamline it in the back of the house, it makes it easier from the front of the house to explain and say, hey, our items this is all gluten-free. It makes it easier for everybody across the board.
Exactly. And to hint on, or what earlier was saying, it's a massive cost savings as well too, when it comes to food costs and labor costs. So at the end of the day, we all have a bottom line to deliver. So being able to deliver that bottom line is key, but also being able to satisfy the customers that are coming through the door, regardless of their dietary needs, is something that's a massive focus as well. So the more attention we have on it, the more staff training I was able to do with my team on it. I mean, I found we only got really, really close to that goal, where at one point we didn't even buy flour in the kitchen for a couple of years. And we were able to use gluten-free products, gluten-free flours, to really make sure that we were able to address the dietary concerns that everybody had and still deliver a fantastic product.
That and that's your goal, Martha. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to add on to, like, when the front of the house, the less options that they have, they don't have to remember that there's 4 different types of sausages. I just always brought up the sausage because I found it very funny, but when I took over, but they had to remember which one had, gluten in it, which one had this, we have 2 options. Very good. This one is gluten-free. This one's turkey, but they're both gluten-free. You're safe with either one, less things for your front of the house to have to remember. Also, streamlining too, and satisfaction.
Well, and if they all taste good, then what does it matter, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to that question saying we don't accommodate celiac. From your perspective, and you gave me, a couple of answers or a couple of ideas yesterday, but what would a meeting planner be able to do or say to that venue? And then Martha and Murray, I want you to chime in on what you want that meeting, or what a meeting planner could counter when a chef says that.
Well, I think the first question would be to ask, do you make accommodations for other needs? And get that straight off the top. And then I think the next question is, how hard is it to make a gluten-free meal? I mean, it sounds like Murray said it's fairly easy for chefs to do that. So I would think it wouldn't be a huge alteration to be able to make a gluten-free meal. So I think if you ask those questions and they still say, no, we can't accommodate, then you might want to think of taking legal action.
Which is not what is on a meeting planner's, radar every single day, but it is the same thing. I'm like, if I'm looking at a venue, and I guess if I'm looking at a venue and Murray, being from the venue side, and even Martha, if you were taking yourself out and putting yourself in the convention center, what would you want? How can we get around that? Or what is your advice for chefs besides changing your menus a little bit? For a meeting planner, if you say that to a meeting planner, what would you want them to come back to you with?
If a meeting planner came back and said, if that was a response, first, that response I would never give. But as a meeting planner, looking at the actual convention center or the banquet menu package and being able to hopefully identify through that menu some items that may already be gluten-free, already be dairy-free. We're talking about gluten, so let's keep it at gluten right now. But some items that are gluten-free or celiac-free, hopefully, usually most menus now have some stuff that is actually labeled and listed, and you can actually be able to find some sort of icon that might signify that in the menu, or look at the menu and go, could these items be made gluten-free? Could the salad, the roasted butternut squash salad be made gluten-free? Right. And sometimes it's just some of those pointed questions that can kind of look from the culinary standpoint, the chef standpoint, going, okay, you're reading my menus, which is very appreciated. You're reading it. You're not asking me to dream something up, because the event, I've got 4 other events happening that day, but at least you can ask pointed questions regarding the menu to kind of, give yourself a little bit of an inroad with the chef, with the F&B planners, and saying, okay, could this chicken dish be made gluten-free? Could this salad, soup be made gluten-free? Is there, instead of having dessert, can this person just have a fruit plate with maybe a coconut yogurt or something? Is that something that we can accommodate? And that, I think, goes, you're diving in a little bit more with the menu. You're diving a little bit more with the chef. You're not just the next planner coming through the door saying, I need this, I need this, I need this. You dream it up and make sure it happens. Right. So there's a little bit of give and take there as well, too.
Mm-hmm. I like the idea of saying don't dream it up, because it is, I know the chefs have just said, hey, like a planner said, I found this on TikTok. Can you make this? It's not as easy as that. But if you've got those printed menus that you share out to planners all the time, and they work with that. Even an event that I'm doing in a couple of weeks, it came back with a succotash and it said it wasn't gluten-free. And I just replied back, I'm like, I love succotash. Can you tell me what's in your succotash that makes it not gluten-free? And he's like, oh my gosh, I just mislabeled it. So, that's one aspect of that as well, right? Martha, what, in that same context of that conversation, but how do you, as a person who has celiac and multiple food allergies, but also that chef, how do you define a safe gluten-free meal from the culinary perspective? And Laurel, maybe in that legal perspective, if you can chime in on that.
Okay. Well, the first thing I want to say is I agree 100% with every single thing that Murray said. So, ditto on that. But going in for a celiac, it becomes when it comes to asking questions, I will ask questions because I am a very sensitive celiac, and I also have other food allergies. So I'm kind of like I call them a top tier, but I'm a little bit more complex, and mine are outside of the top 9. So it makes it a little bit harder to accommodate. So with me, I'm going to be asking in general, how do you, what is your area like that you're producing this in? And what makes this particular item gluten-free or non-gluten-free, that kind of thing. The exact same thing he was kind of implying, I'm going to ask as well with an item that's already labeled gluten-free to make sure how it's actually processed. I actually was at an event one time that said that they couldn't accommodate mine and a couple other people's meals. And what they actually did was they found an outside source and actually had them make the meals. And we got to choose from another menu. So, and they showed us the process and that kind of thing backwards, not back of the house processing and that kind of thing. Because I'm picky, even when I go to a place, I'm going to ask them, can I look in your back? I'm a chef. I'm just curious. I'm nosy, and I have trust issues. And it's true, I do. But I like to see the process and what goes down in the back room, because just because you say it, the implementations, are they actually being done? That kind of thing. So just anything to make me feel, more comfortable. And what makes a celiac safe for me, my guidelines might be a little bit different than other people's, but for me, I can't have something with flour running around anywhere. So you can't have cake flour just running around in the air. So I want to know if the area has any wheat in it at all. So for me, it makes me a celiac safe for what I need. But most places, as long as you don't have, the flour running around up in the air, airborne, and you're not keeping wheat or anything that could be cross-contacted on the regular surface, it's going to be safe enough for most people to eat safely.
So could that be like you're in the garde-manger section of the kitchen, Murray, this is bringing this really, or in, the cold prep area of that, and not the pastry area of that convention center, it's probably going to be a lot safer than preparing. It's definitely going to be safer than preparing it in the pastry section of the hotel or the conference center. But you could have spaces that don't have wheat flying around, because just for everybody to know, it stays in the air for 12 to 24 hours, right? and lands kind of as dust.
Yeah, it can land anywhere. So yeah, they totally can have a section.
Yeah. All right, Laurel, from a legal perspective, looking at the Leslie University case, which was 2012, is that right?
Yeah, 2013, I think. Yeah.
13. Yeah. So from a legal perspective, what would celiac safe be? And I'm sure it changes with every single incident.
Yeah, well, I think it's at the minimum, it's separate prep area.
Okay.
But then it would be things like changing gloves and that sort of thing. So my thing also is the monetary aspect. So if those people who aren't going to come to that convention center, now they've lost that business, and then they've told you, and then so you tell somebody else. So now they've lost not just that customer, but they've lost a whole slew of customers now by saying that we're not going to accommodate. And then, so we had this one case in California briefly against P.F. Chang's. So P.F. Chang's had a separate gluten-free menu. Everything on the gluten-free menu was $1 more than the regular menu, even things that had never had gluten in them to begin with, like a spinach salad. So a customer challenged that and said, you're charging us basically a surcharge for our disability. And at first the court said no and threw it out, but then they came back and the court said, yes, it is a disability and they may have to accommodate. But then the question was, if they are making the food, so let's say they're making the salad in a separate area with separate preparation, it may in fact cost the restaurant more. So it might be okay to charge a little more for the gluten-free, because you're not just giving them something that's free of gluten, you're giving them the whole process, the gluten-free process. So when the case ended up settling after that, so we never got a real definitive decision. But it's interesting that the court looked at it as it's not just giving you something that's gluten-free, it's the whole process behind it.
Well, and that $1 surcharge on that spinach salad was being charged to all of us, not just the people who were gluten-free. Is that correct?
No. So if you ordered off the regular menu, the salad was one price. If you said, I need the gluten-free menu, and you got the gluten-free menu, it was $1 more.
Interesting.
So you could have two people at the same table paying different prices for the same salad. It just depends on which menu they were handed by the hostess.
Interesting. Which then goes back to, I think a restaurant also has a smaller space to do things and to provide that area or whatever. But, I got a hotel chef one time telling me that they wanted to charge meeting planners for the gluten-free toaster, that to put out, if they were putting out toast for people, they wanted to upcharge them to have that gluten-free toaster. Which
it's kind of funny because I've been with different scenarios like that, and I've actually talked to a lot of customers. And I've said that if I put out a gluten-free toaster, would you use it? And they all said no, because I don't trust that somebody else has come to that toaster and put a piece of regular toast in it. So it's kind of one of those things that I look at and say, you know what? No, I mean, if we can't safely do it for you, and I can't 100% guarantee it, then I'm not going to do it for you. Right. So it's having, but you got to have an option on the flip side with that as well, too. Like maybe I can buy in some pre-done pastries or some gluten-free muffin mix, which is one of the big things that I used to use. All my muffins were gluten-free. And that was something that we would say, okay, fine. All the muffin batter is all gluten-free, and it went for everybody, gluten or not, right? But I mean, just looking here about the P.F. Chang case, charging an upcharge was something that I did away with at my property years ago, probably 10 years ago, when people would come and say, how much more would it be for a vegan meal, for a vegetarian meal? And we just incorporated into the cost of it. And when we looked at streamlining our menu to address allergens, like the top 5 allergens in general, we found so much cost saving within that with not making separate meals and accommodating for everybody that we didn't need to charge a surcharge. The only thing we used to charge a surcharge was for kosher meals, because that was something that was definitely done off property and certified and shipped in and things like that. So that's one thing we had to do. But from a cost saving perspective, I've never upcharged anybody for that, because we were just able to incorporate it into our regular operation. But I did have a quick question, though. Was one of the taglines we used at the property was, we're not a gluten-free kitchen, but your item is made with gluten-free ingredients. And that was something that we kind of, we stuck to. So it was like, okay, it's not, we're not certified gluten-free. The kitchen's too small for that. We can't do it. But your item was made with gluten-free ingredients. Would that be something that would be acceptable, do you think?
Martha?
I think it would definitely, for me, I would still ask extra questions on like where exactly it is for being prepared. But for me, I would personally not eat it.
Mm-hmm.
But I know several people that it's perfectly fine for.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose it depends on your sensitivity level, I guess.
Yeah. And I think how bad your reactions are. Like, for instance, mine has, I call it upgraded. And if I eat gluten, it used to make me incredibly ill and I would vomit. Now I pass out with it. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm very, 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 very cautious. So I eat out very rare, and I have to really know the chef and really trust whoever's making my food. So
another thing, just brief, might be to let the person bring in their own food. So there was just a case I just found in February of 2025 in the Southern District of Florida, which is where Disney World is. And they said that it was discrimination not to allow this family to bring food in to this was called Arcade Zone Fun Park. But the court outright said it's discrimination not to allow them to bring their allergen-free food into the park. And they said it's not a big deal. It's not going to really change how they do things. And that the court found it was a reasonable accommodation. So that might be another option to say people can bring their own food in.
Right. And on the comment feed of that thread from that planner, and Nancy's, I'm going to put your thing up here in a second, was that give that person money to go find food off site. And my challenge with that too is that you're then forcing that person to go off site, and not working with them. They lose out on the networking and the business meetings that are happening over those food functions. But Martha, on you, maybe making that introduction to the chef, to the chef, to have those conversations versus that meeting planner being that third party and making those decisions. Giving them those options. I like that. And Laurel, that's another option. And I think the Williamsburg case with the young kid on the school trip, I don't even remember what year that was too, where Williamsburg said, oh no, you can't bring in outside food and beverage, to our restaurant. And they found in favor of the kid after appeal, right? Same thing. So Nancy commented with a funny comment, says that's when the Planners Institute, this is bring your own toaster, brand new out of the box, client pays for toaster, right? I mean, and I actually did that for not a toaster, but I did that for somebody who's Orthodox Jew, right? During Passover, I bought her own Keurig. One year I bought the Keurig and this year, actually the hotel bought her a brand new Keurig to put in her room so she could have her coffee. And Nancy, I don't know what you said. Thank you for that, for Chef Murray. Specifically what that was for, but then also what about cross-contamination aspect? Martha's speaking to that now. How do we talk to a venue about that management of their food and beverage for that cross-contact and cross-contamination?
I think you just need to approach it with, I always like to go to whoever's directly going to be handling the food or handling the other chefs and the cooks around. So I always like, can I talk to them directly too? Because usually you have somebody else you're talking to. I would like to talk to the chef if I can, or whoever's going to be directly making my food. And I want to know, like, are you changing your gloves? What's your process? Go from A, B, C, D. Walk me through it. Especially, if somebody's doing pasta, are we rewarming the pasta? I want to be, and I think most people, even if you don't have a chef's background and how little slip ups can happen, I just want to know what are you doing? What else are you making at this time that you're making my food as well? Do you have somebody that's just making this particular item, or are they also making apps and salads? What's the chances of them not changing their gloves in between making an app and a salad? And how is that, issue? So I just ask the questions about the item that you want to eat. I think Chef Murray said that too. Like, take that item that you really want to eat and ask the questions about that specifically, and I think it makes it easier for everybody.
Okay. Hey, Laurel, I know you have to run, but do you have any other thoughts on, how planners can address this? And I think we need to put it into can we put it into our contracts before we, book that venue, saying, please provide your SOPs on how you manage allergens?
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, I think, and I also think, like what Chef Murray said, making it as easy as possible. To say that this isn't hard. So if they push back and say, we can't do it, say, well, why can't you? What's the obstacle? And maybe it really isn't as hard as they think it is. So that's.
And could it
practical.
be their lawyers on the other end?
It could be, but
yeah,
I think you're always better to err on the side of inclusion rather than exclusion, even legally. I think you're better.
And there was a couple of other cases that are in the works, quote unquote, in the works for around allergen safety. Is that right?
Well, there's always cases coming around. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's the United Celiac one, which is not actually about contamination, but about food in the pilot. Yep. And then the Disney case is still, I think that's not going to court until 2026.
The Disney death, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But the one that you brought up, I hadn't heard that one yet. So that's a good one to keep in our, not back.
Yeah. And it's in Florida. So hopefully right. If somebody, the problem of course with Disney is the whole signing away your rights thing, but that's
right.
a whole other topic.
Right. Exactly. Well, I appreciate you being here to pipe in on that legal aspect of this. And I think it does show that we need to be more proactive in our legal aspect of managing this as well up front and asking the right questions.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, and nice to meet you, Chef Martha and Chef Murray.
Pleasure.
Nice to meet you too.
Nice to meet you as well.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
All right.
Okay. Let's see how I'm going to move me down here, or I don't know. Never mind. It won't let me do that. So, okay. So for my two chefs, I mean, what is your advice for, I'm going to say your legal aspect, and I know, Martha, you corporate came in and changed your entire practices of what you were doing, but how do you show that the value of this to the corporate side of it to make sure that this can happen and you're not pushing clients away?
I think it's money. I was able to push it away for a few years, and then our company was sold and it was a whole brand new management, and they didn't want to see any of the things. But I think speaking to money and value, people that have had a good experiences, especially food allergy people or celiac people, we're going to keep going back to you. We're going to stay loyal because you keep us safe. You also give us good food. We're happy to be there. So same thing with planners. I'm sure, the more that you are working with these people that, you're bringing them more money in. So I think it's all about money in some aspects, especially with corporates, but then also, returning money.
Mm-hmm. Right. Murray, I mean, I know you and I had a conversation in the car. We were driving from Austin in Texas. We were driving across Texas, and, about like really kind of showing the value of what you're doing, right? Financially wise.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the things that we really got away with and we set ourselves apart from our competition was the fact that we were addressing dietary concerns. And we really worked hard with our dietary concerns to make sure that those meals were actually, if the same or better as what anybody else was getting. So we really kind of pushed to make sure that we were making sure that we had a great experience for them. They didn't feel excluded with any dietary concern. Didn't feel excluded. They didn't feel they had to go to a separate buffet, order off a separate menu or anything like that. We were able to make sure that we were able to accommodate those needs within them. But the one thing it came down to was proper labeling, proper identification, and having the staff trained to say that if I was on a buffet and I had something that had, say, flour in it, or there was I would always put that at the end of the buffet. I would never put it at the beginning of the buffet because I would have the possibility of spoons cross-contaminating within that one item. So if that item was at the end of the buffet, then that's the spoon for the end of the buffet, and then you kind of go. But also having the team, staff training was huge for us. So we used to make sure that we had our team fully aware of what dietary concerns we had coming up, what items that we had both front and the back of the house that met dietary concerns. And then we were able to just look at different sort of substitutions that would be out there. So I think Chef Martha, you mentioned pasta. I mean, I have yet to have a good gluten-free pasta. I'm sorry. I haven't found that yet. So we just took pasta off the menu. It was like, okay, we're not making pasta today. We're going to make our own gluten-free potato gnocchi. And we made that instead with a gluten-free flour that was made in-house, which was a fantastic substitute, held up really well. And it was something that everybody enjoyed, but it wasn't your typical pasta where someone may feel a little bit like, oh, there's pasta on the buffet. I don't know if I should eat, or I need to eat around that whole dish. But it was one of those things where I found labeling, staff training, identifying, being able to recognize the group that you had in house, but also the financial goals of having an open, flexible environment for allergies. We really reaped the benefits of that when it came down to repeat business for different clients coming through the door.
The pasta thing, there was an event I was at a couple months ago, and the chef bought an Italian gluten-free pasta, and made sure that we had a good thing. They just didn't cook it long enough. And it was so crunchy. It was like, okay, you also need to learn that gluten-free pasta takes a little bit longer to cook than your regular pasta does. And so and they served it to everybody. It didn't come out because it didn't taste well because it was crunchy still.
Get a comment. I've yet to try a good gluten-free pasta. It's either hard or it's mush. There's no in between. Right. There's no in between.
Exactly.
If you found it, that's great. I haven't found it yet up here.
I have a couple, but you do have to play with how you cook them. So
right,
yeah,
what they're made with. But yeah, it totally has to do with and holding. Like you can't hold it the way you would regular pasta either. So I was Italian trained back in the day, before I found out I had celiac disease. So it's one of those crazy things. Yeah. It took a very long time to get a good pasta.
Yeah.
All right. You found it.
All right. So Nancy said she was thanking you about the upcharges on the kosher meals. We understand that because it's definitely coming from a thing, but it also is like, can you find a gluten-free kosher, like how we have to go out and find that kosher meal? Can we find that outside kosher or gluten-free caterer that's doing that could bring in that meal for them, in a safe environment? But going back to the money, Joshua piped in here, recurring revenue will definitely encourage these businesses to care about food allergies if they don't have a personal connection to it. Yeah, I agree, Joshua. I mean, there's so many chefs that I meet that don't necessarily have, they have that connection. And so now it's changed their perspective. But Marie, you don't have that. And, what was a trigger for you to say, hey, I want to do this and do it right?
That's a great question. Actually, the trigger for me was more our senior vice presidents and our senior leadership team changed over at the property I was working at. And they all came over and everybody had allergies and dietary concerns and big ones. It wasn't small ones. It was multiple ones. And we really had to kind of, go back to our toolbox and say, okay, what can we kind of come up with here that we can serve everybody? And that kind of really started us down the road. I'm going back probably maybe even 10 years ago now, where we really started looking at, okay, what is a good gluten-free flour we can use? What is a dairy alternative we can use? What is products that are out there that I can buy in versus having to make and, retrain my team or struggle with my labor costs to make sure this worked? And over the years, I think the industry itself has really identified those challenges from the culinary standpoint. And some of the products that are on the market right now are honestly incredible. At one point, I was having a dairy-free cheese that was vegan that I actually preferred over regular cheese. It was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I can't find this cheese anymore in Canada. They don't sell it here anymore. It actually came out of Scotland. And this stuff was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. And then I started incorporating that into my regular items. And the people who had the allergy, very appreciative and totally understood it, liked it, enjoyed it. And the people who didn't have the allergy still liked it and enjoyed it. And that was my clinch to say, okay, this is the way we need to move forward here, because nobody's ever asked me to add the gluten back to something ever. So I've never had that conversation with somebody. But if I take the gluten out of something and you don't know there's no gluten in it, okay, did you enjoy it? I did, chef. Thank you very much. And the celiac person, did you enjoy it? Yes, I did. Thank you very much. We're good. Moving forward here. Right. So it's about simplifying the operation and identifying where some things matter, but some things matter to your regular meat and potatoes people, but some things just don't matter. Right. So if you can find that balance with your customers and you can say, okay, do I need to put a roux or flour into my chicken sauce to make it edible? Or can I not put flour into it and maybe put like a fruit salsa on it and a pan jus and some fresh herbs or something and just kind of play with it a little bit and still have a great presentable, tasty dish, but just cut the flour out of it? That is so easy just to kind of tick that box and move forward. It's really easy to accommodate those kind of environments, and the kitchen gets to have a little bit of fun too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a chef I was talking to, sorry, Martha, a couple weeks ago. And I said, well, I've got somebody that's got a soy allergy. And he's like, well, they'll get a grilled piece of chicken with some steamed broccoli. I'm like, this person's going to be there for 4 days. I'm like, that's what you're going to serve them all the time. I'm like, you can easily, to me, eliminate soy from a menu.
Mm-hmm.
Why would that, it boggles my mind that was the response from that chef.
I feel like those types of responses come from fear and uneducation and not having the passion for just serving good food that I think is a basic as a chef that you need to have. So it can come from either three. I'm not saying that one person has all three of those things, but it stems from those things. And I think Chef Murray may agree with this as well. Talking to some chefs, they'll hear what we're doing and they'll think that it's just, oh, that's amazing, or I could never think about it. And it's you're making it more complicated than it needs to be. It's all about simple, good food at the end of the day, and not looking at what you can't have, but what can they have. And it's, for me, it's always been a challenge. And for me, my passion started with my youngest kid, then finding out I had that what was wrong with him is wrong with me, oh, this is why I'm sick, and really saved my life. And so my passion for food just went into that way. And so some people get so restrictive, and I've been to events that have been allergy friendly. And in fact, Tracy, you and I have been to the same events, and it's salt and pepper is all they had. And I'm like, why couldn't they have herbs on the side, fresh herbs that we could put in? Because yes, you can be allergic to anything. My kid's allergic to garlic. So nothing I have has garlic in it. You learn how to play with herbs in another way. So it's that passion to give good food and good service. I think some people lose it sometimes.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and it's that training aspect of it, and trying new things and giving some flexibility, in like, hey, like, cause you're doing R&D already to create new recipes every single year. Right. And like, if you're changing your menus quarterly basis to come up with new things, I'm like, why not incorporate that into that R&D? Is like, can we do this without this, or can we do this without that? Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not trying to make excuses for whatever the chef was going through, but it could have been a lack of availability, a lack of staff, a lack of trained people that can do it. Maybe this request was the 15th request he's had this last couple of weeks, and he hit a wall, or that person hit a wall, and that could have been just like, okay, no, we're not doing this. Thank you very much. Right. Or maybe something that has come up that has, been a negative experience that has happened at that property in the past. And it's one of those things you're just shying away from, versus embracing, but that's really at a property level of what the property is comfortable with as well too. So I was lucky. I had the support of my leadership team and my management team. And, I had the financial support as well too, to really kind of make some dramatic changes, and the flexibility with my menu to really kind of do what I needed to do to make sure that the customer was happy.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Okay. We're going to wrap it up here, but do either one of you have a final parting message to planners or to chefs about making sure that, where's my little banner, that we are celiac safety at events, legal and, standards for gluten-free catering?
I would say just what I just recently said, which is, instead of taking it as a negative as positive as you can, and tell people what you can do, and see if it works within their diet restrictions. And if you physically, or for whatever reason, staffing cannot, supply that meal, then reach out to other resources or another chef and see if you can have the meal brought in. Because at the end of the day, you want everybody to be happy and healthy.
Yes. That
sounds great. I would agree 100% with that. From my standpoint, I would say as a planner, really look at the menus that the venue's offering, and see if you can yourself go through the menu and pick out a few items that sounds interesting, that maybe you can say, hey, you know what? Can this be made gluten-free? What is a gluten-free ingredient in this item? and work with the culinary team, work with the F&B team within their own structure. You'll get a lot more buy-in than if you kind of go out the box and say, hey, I need this and you need to dream up something for me. Because then you're going to get pushback and you're going to get, people are going to get a little like, oh, okay, hang on a second. You're not my only event today. But if you're working within their menu structure, which they know they're comfortable with, they can properly execute, and they have to make maybe one or two tweaks. If they have to take the croutons out of the Caesar salad for 5 people, that's an easy fix. Mm-hmm. Right. So it can be something where you might get a lot more buy-in as a planner with that venue and with that food and beverage team.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I put the contact information up for Murray on LinkedIn. There you go. Murray, you have to remove those 306 thing behind your name I'll show you how to do that. Laurel, who's already gone, there is hers. And then Martha, there is hers. But I so appreciate the two of you and Laurel always being there to listen to my freak outs and to help address these, because it doesn't need to be a freak out. It doesn't need to be a hey, you're not wanted here. It can be in that inclusive experience. So thank you both for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then I have to introduce you to Laurel because her son's coming your way. I mean, that's a couple hours away, but thank you both. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Joshua and Nancy, thank you for your comments. I appreciate it. And until next week, stay safe and eat well. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.